All right, so we're gonna switch gears a little bit and talk about safety and consent. And I wanted to start with like a visualization. So, what does safety and consent look like, feel like, sound like for you?
Well, Tirza actually asked me something one time that I think has like stayed with me for a long time, that I think about when I think of like full body consent, which is, or consent and safety in general, which is that you feel a full body yes. So, navigating through sexual experiences or really any experiences that I'm having, like what does that mean, and is my whole body saying yes? Do I feel psychologically safe? Do I feel physically safe? I think I also want to make sure that the person that I'm sharing that experience with is also feeling psychologically safe, and we don't know what other people are feeling. So then that requires the communication piece around making sure that we're on the same page. And I think those things together with a full body yes is what makes me feel secure and safe in those experiences.
Absolutely. I think informed consent. I think that knowing what you've been doing outside of me is very important for me to know. I think knowing what's going on with your health and your mind frame is very important for me to feel safe in the experience. Because if you're depressed, I don't want that energy. Actually, I don't receive that. So I think communication, as we discussed previously, is the biggest indicator that I'm gonna feel safe in a situation, is like talking about everything that's going on and then making a decision, like, how we're gonna move forward from there. Because sometimes you could like have a yes in your pussy, but your head and your heart are like, actually, no, thank you. Mm-hmm. So the full body yes is like very important. Like, am I mentally ready to connect with you? Is my heart open to connecting with you? Is my body open? That's when I'm able to feel most safe, is when I'm first aligned with my own self, and then I've had discussions with you that makes me feel closer to you and more, in tune with what's going on and what you're needing in the moment.
Yeah, I think much like you both just touched on, I think honesty and communication are going to play a big role into what helps folks to feel safe. And then I think, as well as verbal communication, nonverbal communication. So if you see someone is saying yes to something, but their body posturing is telling you it's a no, let's check in about that. Like there are other ways to communicate discomfort, fear, trepidation, other than verbally. And so I think that also requires us as individuals to check in with our ego before we lean into a sexual situation, and making sure that we're prioritizing the care on both spaces. So everybody leaves the situation having a good time, or at least feeling like there's always room to communicate when we can pause, or anything that needs to be communicated in the moment.
I really do think it's so important to take a hard look at what our motivations are, because a lot of times we do things that we really don't want to do that much, but we just want somebody to stay around, or we want somebody to know we care. There are other ways to do that besides giving your body to somebody or sharing your body with somebody. So I think it's really just an embracing of what, and a willingness to listen to yourself, and then to, like you were saying, have really good communication with somebody else. Yeah,
I think oftentimes, we're told that there has to be like an enthusiastic yes all the time. And sometimes that's just not possible, because you might be curious about something, it might scare you a little bit, but you still want to try it. So I think understanding that as a boundary in and of itself also heightens the intimacy and allows your partner to know, okay, we are going to move slow. We don't have to like go from 0 to 300 like real quick. And as far as communicating boundaries, I think that is something that you get better at with practice. I don't think any of us have been socialized to advocate for ourselves or speak up or even prioritize our own needs or ask for safety. So while we're learning this new habit, it's probably gonna feel uncomfortable. And like I say with everything, just lean into the discomfort of it. Because I think that discomfort is also there to teach you something. That's part of this unlearning process. Bless you. That's part of this, the unlearning process. And boundaries and these asks for safety are so you can ensure that this is a pleasurable experience, and also so your partner or whoever it is that you're engaging in this specific sexual dynamic with can also scratch the itch to the way you're wanting them to. You know, if someone is looking to deprioritize your ask for safety, then they probably never had you in mind as like an object to be respected or cared for, which might need something to be examined.
I think for me, something that I've been telling partners is like, I'm actually not aware of all of my boundaries, and sometimes they come up in a moment, and I need you to know that I can stop a situation and not even understand why within myself, but we can talk about it, you know. I think that's been a big one for me, just knowing that I have the ability to say, sometimes I don't know why this is coming up for me, but I need you to be okay with that, and I need you to know that that might happen, you know, in this moment. And so, you know, there's been occasions where I'm just like, yeah, probably I don't want to be doing this right now. I'm not really sure why, but when something comes to me or when I sit with myself, we can discuss it, but also making them feel safe enough to know, like, it's probably not you, or it's maybe not you, you know? And I think just getting clear with myself that I have the ability to do that. You know, a lot of things we don't give ourselves permission to do. And that's why boundaries are hard, because we don't even know what our boundaries are until sometimes it's happening in the moment. And so when you slow yourself down enough to become more self-aware, that's like, you know, there's freedom in that.
How I look at boundaries are that they're kind of in place not so much for other people, but more for myself, like what I want, what I would allow, what makes me feel the most comfortable. And I think for sex to be pleasurable, I really need to have intimacy. And so I think that putting boundaries in place so that I feel safe and that I feel comfortable is what will allow me to feel like we can get to that stage of intimacy. And, you know, I think we've talked about communication a lot. I think just communicating that with my partner and hoping that they would, you know, in turn set boundaries that make them feel the most comfortable makes for the most pleasurable sex.
I always say that no is an entire sentence. Right?
Period.
So if there is, I'm very verbal about the word no and using the word no and not really feeling as though it needs to be quantified all the time. Yes, if you're in an intimate situation, you want to kind of feel open to, if you're gonna open your legs, open your mouth is what I'm saying.
Ooh.
You know, if I am there, then I'm already in a place where I feel like I can speak my truth, and if that truth is no, then that's my boundary and I'm sticking to it.
I check in with my people a lot, like friends, partners, whoever. I'm like, are you using condoms? Are you being safe? Do you feel safe? I think normalizing that conversation is how we push that conversation forward in society as a whole. Maybe because I grew up in a household that, you know, prioritize that question, but checking in with your people and being like, are you being safe? I know people right now today who've gotten AIDS, like contracted it, and I'm like, it's still here. STIs are here, so like, be safe. I want you to be well, and I want you to care enough about your body to, you know, ask your partner what's going on with them, you know, for their safety and for your own. Because I don't know if you guys are on the internet or on these dating apps, but you could screenshot one and all of your friends would be like, oh, I dated him. or her or them. And you're like, oh, you know, so asking questions and normalizing the questions is the only way we're gonna create safety within our communities and within our culture as well.